Digital skills for success in 2020. So a little context, GA is a global digital skills company. You can think of us like a college, but built by the tech community. And we have 40 campuses around the world. So our instructors and our team is represented truly from a global perspective in Australia, Asia, Europe, and then throughout the United States and here in Toronto. What's really cool about having a global brand and education is if you want to go do your education in Toronto, but one day you might want to work in Sydney, Australia, the GA brand kind of transcends those borders, and it's truly a global community, which is a really cool company to work for. And honestly, I feel super blessed. We also specialize in online remote learning, and have made that kind of hectic transition in like 4 days, which was crazy, like everyone here. So yeah, that's a bit about GA if you've not heard about us. Some Zoom stuff. Use the Q&A function. I think everyone on here is probably a Zoom Pro by now, and drop questions in the chat. I'll definitely take a look. And because it's a Zoom meeting, I'd love to hear from the community live. So just unmute yourself and ask a question. That would be super sick. A little bit about myself. I worked in product marketing at Rakuten Kobo, which is an e-reading company in Canada. We went up against Amazon 2013 with the Kobo Aura and a number of tablet products. And we were #1 in every market other than the United States for e-reading, which was really cool. And it was built by a lot of ex-BlackBerry employees. And I worked with like some of the smartest people there. And I learned how to take a product that was essentially a 3D printout and bring it to market and create a story. So really early on, my first job out of university was working at one of Canada's fastest growing startups. And it was a really cool experience. I've worked in ad tech. We were acquired by Yellow Pages at Juice Mobile and worked on all the brands you see below. Oops, sorry. And then really happy just to be at GA and have this opportunity to reach so many people around the world. So some things we're going to talk about is trends, Zoom, Slack best practices, starting a small business with no code, managing remote teams. And then I'm going to go through my LinkedIn personally and show you everything that I'm paying attention to on LinkedIn and some tips and tricks for you guys to grow your LinkedIn communities. Keep in mind, everything that I've learned up until this point has been basically poured into this session. So I'm really excited. All right, let's talk about the future. One thing that I think gets lost in everyone's minds is just how volatile the world is right now and how much information is moving very quickly, and it can feel super overwhelming. But I want everyone to know is that we live in the greatest time in human history. Never before has the quality of life, and especially us being very blessed living in Canada, we have a high quality of life. We have a lot of choice as consumers, and technology is exponentially growing, and in a lot of ways it's growing for good things. And so I want everyone to feel that if you're at home and feeling anxiety about what's going on in the world, I want you to know that we live in a really great time and there's many positive things happening in the world, and it's a good time to be a small business. So just some trends I want to speak on. I think I'll start top left and we'll go from there. So #1 biggest trend around remote work. Even BMO has come out and said 80% of their workforce will have some sort of blended remote work and in-person work. And my wife, she works at CBRE, which is the biggest commercial real estate firm in the world. And they've brought on many people from the tech community and say, hey, what does the future of the office space look like? And it looks like a very collaborative space. You will no longer likely have designated desk spots. It will be super open. And the idea is that you will use that space to maybe meet with people, but majority of your work is going to happen outside of the physical office space. So definitely to see a big Canadian bank say that is really interesting. And I encourage anyone who's thinking about getting educated, like now is the time to learn through this medium and do as much work through this medium, because it's really good to learn these tools and be proficient in them. I got Shopify and Libra. Libra is Facebook's digital currency project. Really interesting things happening in digital assets. I also have a chart up here showing Square, which is owned by Jack Dorsey at Twitter, their Bitcoin revenue. And as you can see, it's just substantially growing. So I think the digital asset space is one of the most exciting spaces and is actually a mega trend of the internet. And I look at it this way: if version 1 of the internet was a internet of information, version 2 was a social internet. So that's where Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, etc. came into play. Version 3 of the internet is going to be called the internet of value. So similar to how you send an email over the internet, you have protocols like HTTPS, for instance, that moves information. In the future, we're going to move value in the very same way. And Bitcoin has shown how to do that. But the fundamental innovation with any cryptocurrency or a currency like Bitcoin was the ability to guarantee the scarcity of a digital asset. Guarantee the scarcity of a digital asset. That is a fundamental innovation. And we're starting to see more investment and time poured into digital currencies and these networks. Obviously, we had the big run up back in 2018, but the space is really getting interesting, and it's a lot of very large players like Facebook that are entering. So I'm very excited about it. If you go to Jack Dorsey's Twitter profile, all his description says is just hashtag Bitcoin. So very fascinating to see that space evolve. And I think a lot of products will be built on top of Bitcoin, where you have a consumer product, let's say, an app that incentivizes consumers to purchase through the app. They might give rewards in small increments of Bitcoin, like maybe less than $1. And I think Bitcoin will be that incentive layer. And the reason is because it's real money. People don't want Google credits or fitness credits that you get in a random app, or like points in another. You can think of Fortnite V-Bucks. All these point systems are very, siloed, and there's no value there. Gems are not valuable inside of games. However, cryptocurrencies are valuable. And when you incentivize consumers to do things with digital assets, we're starting to see some really interesting things happen. So pay attention to that space. LinkedIn is exploding. I think a lot of people are realizing that LinkedIn is no longer a professional network. It's more of a personal development network. So where you get to see a lot of people's career paths, their growth, what they're doing in their private lives. Definitely, I've deleted Instagram and Facebook, and LinkedIn is actually the only social network I have, and I'm super active there. And I will share a bit about my community and how I've grown it. At the bottom, you see 2 people on their phone. Phone addiction is a real issue. We are seeing not only millennials, but a large demographics that are completely addicted to their phone. They're spending hours upon hours in screen time. It's easy to get distracted when you're working. So I want everyone to think maybe like from their own mindset of like, how can I avoid my own phone addiction? Try and break up your day. Understand the concept of flow, which means that when you get working on something, flow is a concept. You can think of it, if you think about back when you were younger and you played Lego, you get lost building something in your imagination for hours on end. Well, the same thing happens in work, where you get lost in what you're doing and time kind of flies by. So our phones kind of break that up. They're distracting. You get notifications. Mentally, it's very addicting. So I want everyone to be aware of that. Top right, I have a live stream picture. That's actually me live streaming. I think live streaming, like this medium we are now, is amazing. Like I was doing in-person events where I get like 30 to 50 people out, and that would be a great turnout. Now I reach 500 people per event, which is fantastic. Like I think it's a great marketing tool, and people are looking for this content. So, if you're a small business and you're doing something unique and you have a unique perspective, start live streaming. You can use Zoom. There's LinkedIn Live. There's a number of mediums to do this. Facebook Live is seeing a resurgence. Education. So I'm really close to the innovation happening in education, working at GA. Some interesting trends there is this concept of micro degrees. So we're actually working with Microsoft and Google on creating learning paths that are specific to micro learning. So instead of getting like a full, long degree, my Google phone was answering me. Instead of doing a long degree program, what Google's trying to do is build really low frictions to, I guess the financial costs to certain educations around their own products. Shopify has Shopify Compass. A number of companies have done this. Fiverr Learn is out there. So we're seeing a lot of the education content go from, long form content to these really micro things that you can learn. And that's very interesting. That trend is yet to kind of be seen how it will play out, but you can learn a lot of stuff in various ways now that are outside of the physical, spaces we used to have. I think education is everywhere. You can learn some on podcasts, boot camps, YouTube, the side hustle program, things at Yspace. I'm super bullish on the future of university is going to be a space where company formation happens, where teams are built, where people meet each other and create things. It'll be less focused on the actual content. It'll be more focused on team formation. And I love places like Yspace and the side hustle program. So I want to shout you guys out there. I think that's super exciting. All right. Any questions on the future? Does anyone want to add anything to the future trends that you guys are seeing? And we can talk about it. Come on, David. I know David has an opinion here. No? Nafis, any thoughts?
I mean, you've covered a lot. We're definitely seeing with the age of COVID, digital being a new stream for many industries. So how do you see, I guess, industries adapting to it?
Yeah, I mean, every company I think woke up in March and said, wow, what does a digital version of what I do look like? So you got to think of yoga studios, fitness, people in the fitness industry, Overnight Good Life, and all these big companies that had, thousands of subscriptions realized their business was very difficult. I think you got to look at your business and think, how can I be innovative and how can I do it remotely? And as we start to open safely, it's going to be a hybrid. The online portion and the remote portion of it's not going to go away. So I want people to start planning for their business in the future to have a remote component to it, as well as the in-person component as well. Gary, what are your thoughts?
Oh, hi, and thanks for having me. Good afternoon, everyone. For me, I think it's pretty interesting how a lot of organizations were able to work remotely in such a short time. I mean, it's a huge undertaking. It's a big project, and it involves a lot of collaboration. So for me, I think whenever there's times like this, unfortunately, there's always opportunities to either grow individually or with a family or to expand on your business. So it shows. I think it gives you the opportunity to say, okay, well, if we could do this, what could we do in the future, and apply that to your organization? Because it's unfortunate, yes, and you don't really want to kind of necessarily progress or grow off the back of a pandemic, but I mean, you have to kind of look and see, what are the positives in this? And for me, first and foremost, it's family. A lot of time, I got a 4-year-old. She burns me, but I think to look at the possibilities and with working remotely and understanding that you can still be productive, but in different ways.
That's an amazing statement, Gary. I appreciate your comment. Yeah, family's been something I've spent a lot of time with my wife, almost maybe too much time, if you will. But yeah, I think family is really cool. And we also get to see a window into people's lives. Like my colleagues, I've met their kids, which if I was in the physical space, I wouldn't have met their children. But just by the nature of children walking up saying, oh, what are you doing? Like, it's really a cool thing. Yeah, and I agree. Like, I don't want to say my career has done well on the backs of COVID. However, change happens. Like, that's just the reality of how the world works and how life works. And I think what we can do now is, through spaces like Yspace and stuff we do at General Assembly and the Markham Small Business group there is like, how can we help businesses reimagine what they do? And, there will be some disruption and companies will not be able to survive. And that's just how the world works. But out of this comes a lot of new businesses and a lot of new business models and a lot of resiliency. I think our Canadian, like compared to what we see in the US, in Canada, and specifically Ontario, we've had amazing communication from our leadership. Both sides of the political spectrum have put politics aside and said, we're going to communicate every single day to the public. And that's created a lot of consumer confidence. And I think Canada is actually super well prepared to benefit from the upsides of what's going on in COVID. And what we have to do as this group on this call and Markham Small Business is support our local businesses in that transition. We all are mostly young people and we're native to the internet, but we want to make sure that the people in our communities feel like they're being included and that they're brought along on this process. And so that's basically been my mission for the last 4 months, which has been really exciting. So cool.
Hey, I'll just jump in quickly. So I think, to what you're saying, I think at the university level, we just committed to going online until I think winter semester as well. So May 2021, realistically. So I think, education used to be really hard to crack. I think for any technology companies or any company trying to get into education, as a bureaucratic system. But I think, to your point, now is probably the perfect opportunity because now they're entering into this whole new world that professors are kind of starting to get used to, but students, and it's like, from a student engagement standpoint, how does that keep going? So I think there's a lot of opportunities from an educational standpoint for technology companies to kind of come in and take a look at what they can do to improve a lot of things going on. So I think there's a huge opportunity there. And to your point, there's going to be industries that we never thought of that's going to come up with something interesting that's just going to take off because of this. But it will be really important to see what they will do after, because I think everyone's preparing for businesses to be COVID related, but then you have to also prepare for it to be kind of post COVID relatable, so that there's a world up outside of that and what that looks like as well.
Yeah, I agree. And David, that's an amazing comment. And keep in mind, the world has changed, and in a lot of ways, it will never go back. And we only can look to the future. And the future, in my mind, is super bright and positive. So I'm really excited. And everyone here is kind of a leader in the future. So.
I'm just going to chime in here
Yep.
on David's point. Speaking to the recovery, that's usually the hard part, right? So I think that's a valid point because we're managing the pandemic, but to speak to the recovery is also going to give us opportunities to expand. And personally, from like even in the government, they're very bureaucratic about even emails. So it's given us great opportunities to expand.
Yeah. Thank you, Gary. Appreciate that. Yeah, I 100% agree. So just some stuff that I know we all are pretty experts on Zoom, but there may be folks here that are either interviewing using Zoom or just trying to figure out how do I do client meetings effectively or facilitate my team. So I have a few insights. So 2 platforms mainly we use at GA are Zoom and Slack. And I think a lot of the world, especially companies, are using both these products. As a host, if you're ever hosting a live stream, you really want a slide like this. And I'd probably screenshot this and kind of steal it from me if you're hosting future sessions, but really encouraging people to come off or turn their video on and use the chat and the Q&A function. There are people on this call that don't have their video on, and that's totally okay. I don't want to force people to do it. However, if we were meeting in the real world, I would be able to see you anyways. And to build your personal brand or your personal identity through this medium, you have to be comfortable being a bit vulnerable and showing, who you are and, maybe throw a virtual background if your room is messy or something. But I definitely, want people to steal this slide from me. So how do you change your virtual background? So you can go to the preferences in Zoom and you can make it whatever you want. Some things that I recommend is branded stuff, like mine is branded GA, NAFIS is Y space. But you got to keep in mind that when your video is on, you're building rapport with people, and you're also demonstrating that you understand Zoom and how it works. And if you're doing interviews and whatnot, like, you're going to have to be on video anyways. If you're going to be in a client meeting, I always recommend starting with video. If your client doesn't have video, you can turn yours off, but definitely I've been in meetings where I've seen the person with Zoom and I've not, like clients or partners, and I've built much better relationships with people that I've seen face-to-face versus people that didn't have theirs on. And all it took was just me encouraging them, saying, hey, would you like to do video? If not, no worries, we can stay off video, but definitely encourage people to do it. if you don't already have the Zoom client on your computer, please download it. It's something you should definitely have and be comfortable with. Screen sharing. I know it seems super basic, but like I want to encourage when you're doing demos with clients or you're showing someone on the screen, be very comfortable on organizing your tabs across the top and sharing certain things and flipping through tabs. This is a great way to kind of communicate what you're talking about or demoing your product or your service. And if you're very proficient at it, it takes a lot of the awkwardness, if you will, out of the session. So get very comfortable, practice screen sharing and practice organizing your tabs. Don't screen share your Chrome browser and there's like literally a million tabs across the top. Like that's just, I don't know, it's not best practices and people are like, wow, you are super busy or very kind of disorganized. I'm the number one, I always do that. So all my tabs are there. So, but I do recommend, especially for partners or clients. All right, Slack. So a really interesting way that we use Slack, and this is more internally, but you can see Shannon at the top there has every week when we open up our Slack, our sales team allocates a certain emoji for what they've sold. So FT means full-time and Elmo there means part-time, and it's Yoda or Baby Yoda and Elmo. And there are ways that you can ingest these emojis into Slack. But you can see that as our team starts enrolling students or in, case sales for us, they drop the emoji of the product they sold and maybe when the product will be delivered and the content of the product. So DGM stands for digital marketing starting July 21st. And you can see the entire team. So I recommend that if you run a company, you use these emojis on your sales team, you encourage your teams to do this. And then anytime a sale is made, you have the sales rep listed here. And then you can see below, like 7 people drop the fire emoji. Like that's our whole organization jumping in and like giving Mike, some props. Like, hey man, you made a sale during COVID. Like you get a fire emoji. And get used to using memes. I know there's, if you run a company or a team, not everyone's comfortable memeing and emojiing, but like you really have to encourage people to express themselves. And Slack is a great way to do this. And for sales teams, I think this is a super effective way. So screenshot this screen because this is a really good tip. Every week, pick a new emoji set, keep it fresh. Make sure your entire company is on it and use memes. The other thing you can do in Slack that not a lot of people know about is if you create partnerships with other organizations, you can join their channel. And we do this at GA. So I have the GA ones, of course, but there's a code mentoring group that I'm a part of that I work with. Digitalks produces events. The Kin ecosystem is a digital currency project. And then at the bottom, we have Startup Slang, which is an organization we work with on Fiverr events. So I'm in all these channels. So use Slack if you create a relationship with another organization or a partner or another company and they have Slack, find a way that you can link up or get invited to their Slack workspace and contribute, go into it and contribute ideas and things to work on. It will build a much closer relationship with who your partner is. And it's a really good tool that not a lot of people think about, but use it from a partnership and community building standpoint with other companies. Enables communication across organization. Really, really underrated feature. All right, some tips on managing remote teams. So is there any question about Slack and Zoom? Does anyone here run a sales team and do something similar to this? Anyone done client meetings or interviews via these tools? Yeah. Gary, do you want to explain kind of what you've experienced?
Well, usually mine's more on like a mass level. We'll have, you have to buy, I don't know if you have to buy, but I personally didn't buy it, but I don't think Zoom's free. So, but I've just used it on a team format, team platform, team meetings really. And for like individual meetings as well. It's pretty
Okay.
straightforward. I've done the screen sharing. Sometimes I have some issues with the volume coming out on the other side. I don't know if anyone else has experienced that. Like if you're trying to share a video, like a TED Talk or something, that's kind of the only thing I've ran into is just a volume. But aside from that, I think it's a great platform.
Yeah, it's definitely number one. Yeah, they're bringing out a bunch of other features around like augmented reality. So you can have like, if you think about Messenger and kind of things over your face and whatnot. Anyone else want to share kind of their best practices? Is anyone here running a small business and had to sell or run a session over Zoom? Here's another question. Have you had to value your product? So let's say you're a dog trainer or you're doing a coaching session. Have you changed your pricing because it's Zoom focus?
Well,
I would.
Hey, Joshua, can you hear me?
Yep. Hey, Dan. Go ahead, Dan. All right. I think Dan is frozen there.
Well, while we're waiting for Dan to come back up, I'm a small business coach, and I have I've moved my platform online, and it is a challenge to engage in small group conversations and using breakout rooms. Most people don't know that you need to set up your breakout rooms ahead of time, or that you need to actually turn on that functioning. But that is one way to also deepen the conversation amongst folks for the coaching that I've been doing.
And Dan, for your business, have you had to change maybe the way you talk about your sessions or even pricing for this kind of remote world versus the physical world?
Actually, this is Jason. Dan is
Jason.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I have adjusted because I don't need to create all of the printouts anymore. So that allows me to discount so basically what I've done is I've removed the copying fees that I would have put on the participants, but otherwise I've kept my prices the same.
Cool. Thank you for sharing, Jason. Is there any other things that you do kind of with groups, maybe other than breakout rooms, that you think is really interesting and would like to share?
That's one of the things that I've been exploring, that because I'm so used to, there's so much conversation and so much interactivity that happens when you're in person. I've actually been exploring a couple of different things, but I have not put them into action yet. I'm trying to think of, there's a couple platforms that you can use in conjunction with that you're, yes, there are. I'll try to think of what they are and put them in the chat. But there's the challenge that I have is I live in a rural area. And so my internet is not the most reliable. And so when I start multiple different channels of interacting with participants, it gets to be a little laggy, and I have to be very cautious of that.
Yeah, it's tough. I'm in a rural area as well, but moving back to city and hoping Elon Musk comes with Starlink soon, because that looks like it has high-speed satellite. One thing I want to share is a product called Icebreaker. We actually use it. I think one of the big challenges with Zoom, even with breakout rooms, is very difficult to get people to network. And I've gotten a lot of questions around like, how do you facilitate networking? I've been a part of an Icebreaker session. I've not hosted one myself, but essentially when you're in Icebreaker, the main host is in a thing like this, and then it's very similar to Zoom, you do breakout rooms. However, what Icebreaker does is surface, different kind of content that shows up when someone is one-on-one video chatting. So it takes like a room of 10 and puts them into 5 one-on-one chats, and then prompts them with questions around like resilience. There could be, tell about yourself, about your work life, etc. So this product is, I believe, free, but very worth exploring. And Lisa here is one of the co-founders and also a GA fan. So yeah, this is a really good tool, icebreaker.video. I think it's a really great product to try out. So definitely check it out. It's one that I've experienced at GA and I think it's amazing. So I actually have some engagement stuff in the managing remote team section. So kind of how our team works is we have 8 of us in Toronto. And I think this is like super important because there's a lot of organizations and managers out there like, you know, how do I create engagement with my team, or how do I keep everyone's A, morale high, and B, keep them engaged? So we have mandatory meetings that are about 15 minutes long in the morning, in the afternoon. And in the morning meetings, actually, what someone will do is someone different every time kind of launches the morning meeting. So they'll do like either hangman exercise, or they might do like a stop, start, continue, which is you look at your, you know, what you're doing now, you say, I want to stop one thing. So let's say like, I want to stop, I don't know, self-doubt or something like that. And I want to start doing, you know, meditation or note taking or whatever. And then I want to continue live streaming. So that's an example of like a start, stop, start, continue. This is something you can do with your clients, I think, as well. And it kind of makes them ease into sharing, because again, like Jason mentioned, I think it's super validated, is that it's very difficult to get something out of someone in video. When you're sitting across someone in real life, you know, there's a social norm there that if you don't talk and you kind of hide behind a wall, it's really weird. Like people are like, what? Why is this person not talking to me? That's strange. However, in this medium, people can hide behind their webcam, and their identity and their personality is very difficult to pull out. So these are things that you can do to kind of bring that out of people. Another one we did last week I thought was really good was list your first concert and then your most memorable concert. So it gets people kind of nostalgia of like, wow, like I went and saw, you know, Down with Webster or the Rolling Stones when they came to Toronto during the SARS concert that they did after SARS, you know, whatever it may be. It really brings out and gets people thinking about nostalgia. And Hangman obviously is pretty cool. You can play games like Scribble.io and Jackbox.tv, and these are where someone will share their screen as a host, and then everyone can plug in with their phone, and they can play the various games. So definitely screenshot this slide. There's a lot of really interesting tips here. What else is here? You know, as a manager or even yourself, you really, like, people value their work or their employees' work by showing up at 9 a.m. and going home at 5 p.m. Just the fact that that person showed up for work, there's certain value there. However, when you're a manager and you can't see your employees all the time, you know, it's very difficult. Like, how do I value my employees' work? And it's very important to sit with them and say, look, okay, this is your job. You know, let's create metrics around your job so that we can see your activities. So say it's a office administrator, you know, someone who's assisting you, you'd say, well, you know, I want your goal to be, I don't know, calling 10 people, or maybe it's a young business development rep. You know, your goal is to call this many people this week. And then we are going to measure your call ratio, but also everyone you put in Salesforce as a lead. And just making sure you're measuring these things and holding them to these metrics versus, you know, worrying about what they're doing between their 9 to 5. That's super important. I know it sounds super obvious, but there's a lot of people, and my manager struggled at first, and I had to get on him a little bit about this. I said, Connor, you can't see what I'm doing every day. You know, if you want to look at my calendar, but otherwise you have to understand, like, here are the top 3 numbers that I want you to look at. And if they're declining, then come talk to me. If they're rising, let me do my thing. So that's kind of, you know, it's a bit of a different mindset. Is anyone on this call here that manages a remote team? Or self-manages themselves? Sorry, go ahead, Gary.
Oh no, I was saying I self-manage, and yeah, the KPIs are important because, as I said, with now working remotely, there's actually more accountability on the table because you're not, as you said, showing up is half the battle, right? G.I. Joe. But what I am seeing is that it was a bit of a challenge in the beginning because the kids are home. Normally, if you're working from home, your children aren't home, and just trying to have them to balance that juggling act. But now that we're hopefully going into the recovery period, everyone can be kind of adjusted. But I do find the accountability is extremely high. It's actually a little higher. You could coast and have your regular water cooler talk, but now it's the numbers there's a lot of background work happening, and the data is very important, especially when it comes to funding. I don't know if anyone has experience with proposals, but when you're looking into funding, the data is very important, whether it's private or public.
Yeah, Gary, do you mind sharing a bit about your business, what you do?
Well, I'm kind of two-tiered. I'm 9 years in public service for the regional municipality of York as a community. Well, I had a couple of positions, but my most recent position, long-standing position, is an integrated wraparound case coordinator for the Ontario Works program. And I'm also on the diversity and inclusion committee, along with the wellness committee as well. The reason I'm actually here today is because, aside from that, I actually have worked with special needs children and families for the last 15 years, and I'm looking to and start my own corporation. So I thought I'd utilize the education that we have here to get going.
Wow, Gary, I want to thank you for your service and your work with children with special needs. I think I know a close family friend of mine. She's an elementary school teacher and works with children with special needs, and it's, she's had to package basically all her lessons, and more important, like the tactile activities, like the working with things like physical blocks and whatnot. She's had to package that up for parents and almost teach parents how to teach at home, which has been a very big challenge. So, Gary, the work that and the business that you are potentially creating right now is in very high demand. And you probably have realized that, yourself, but I want to thank you for that. And thanks for sharing.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for asking.
Anyone else manage a remote team or want to maybe share kind of what they've learned?
You gotta lighten you gotta lighten the load. You have to lighten it a little bit, and I think it's also a good opportunity to have your either colleagues or teammates take leadership opportunities as well too, right? Like if you're on meetings, I always suggest that it doesn't always have to be myself. It could let's have like the whole team, everyone do it, even if you're uncomfortable. It's the only way you're going to grow. So we've had that, and also we just encourage anyone to kind of share any kind of motivational or encouragement or anything funny, really anything. It doesn't always have to be strictly work related. So just keep it light sometimes.
Yeah, I have a story. One of my colleagues' sons, he has autism, and he couldn't have his birthday party this year. And so what all our colleagues did was we changed our virtual background to Roblox characters. It's kind of like Lego. And he loves Roblox. And he just he was loving it. He was on the stream. We were playing Scribble.io, and Roblox was all the theme. And so you got to really kind of, I think, stand up for your colleagues in this medium, check in with people, make sure people are okay. And I think mental health has been a huge challenge. So I know even for myself, like I've had a lot of self-doubt of, can I make this adjustment? We all have mortgages and things we have to keep living. And so it's good to definitely just kind of check in with your colleagues. One last thing on managing remote teams is do pizza days. Or it could be whatever. It could be a sushi day, or it could be an Indian food day, or whatever your food of choice. But our boss gave us all $40 to go out and do pizza. And so I went and I'm on Zoom on my phone, and I'm walking into a pizzeria with my mask on, of course, and picking up my pizza, and everyone on Zoom just like loved it. They're like, wow, look at Josh. This is a true food review right here. And I gave it a star rating and everything. So it was pretty funny. So use pizza days. Maybe it's once a month, but it keeps people engaged. All right, no code. So no code is this idea that, in the last probably 5 years, there's a lot of products out there where you don't have to be a developer to start a business. And everyone has this mental block around, I'm not a technical person. How do I start a business or launch a website? One quote I love is, I build my ideas. I think a lot of people suffer from, they have tons of ideas, but they're not building their ideas. And when you start building your ideas, that's when you're going through the process of, kind of like saying, is this a good idea? Is there a market here? Am I doing something novel and creating value? When you start building your own ideas. Jordan Singer, he's a designer at Cash App, owned by Square and Twitter. But I love him on Twitter. You should search Jordan Singer. He's fantastic. So another big thing around why to start a business or to be confident about your business is, with the decrease in interest rates, like you no longer can deposit money in a GIC or a bank account and get like 3% return. With a side hustle that gives you $1,000 a month in income, you would need an investment portfolio of about $400,000 at 3% annual just to replace that income. So it's this mentality here that, not all of us have 400 grand in the bank, but I think we can all figure out, how do I deliver $1,000 worth of value a month? And so I want to encourage people that starting a side hustle or a small business is a great way to build your savings. And I know for a lot of people, it can be a bit daunting of, how do I get started? And that's why I have this slide on no code. So the first thing you need to do is make sure you're defining your MVP. So this is the minimum features that it takes to ship a product. It's basically, what's the minimum things I need to do to launch my business. And I get this from, we do with the City of Toronto Shop Here program. We train 400 MBA students how to help 40,000 small businesses in Toronto. And the whole focus around it, and it's built on the Shopify platform. The whole focus for our students there is get them to sit with the client and say, what are the minimum features or website functionality that you need to go live? And everyone overthinks everything they need to add, but anytime you launch something, think about the minimum pieces you need to do that. And then once you launch, you can collect data and customer feedback and iterate from there. So don't get stuck on being a perfectionist. Define an MVP, ship it. Here's a little tidbit that not everyone thinks about. Go to Reddit communities. The best product ideas and the best problems are all surfaced in Reddit. So if you're, let's say you're in early childhood education, like Gary is, I would go search out subreddits that talk about, working with children with special needs, and go see what that community's problems are. When someone posts a problem of like, hey, like I need to figure out the solution, I feel at home in my Reddit community. This is like free information as an entrepreneur. You can go there and say, okay, what ideas can I pull out of this thread? And then once you create your idea or your product, you can test it in that community. You can maybe post your solution or your company and say, hey, everyone, I want you to see if this solution, does it make sense for you? A great example of this was someone went into the R ride sharing, which is a bunch of Uber and Lyft drivers. And they would, complain about like, hey, where do I buy, water bottles efficiently or whatever for my cars, for my customers. And someone decided, well, I'm just going to create a box of ride sharing essentials and put it on a Shopify store. Next thing you know, they got $100,000 a month in revenue. So it's this idea of use Reddit to figure out products and find product market fit. So again, what problems do Reddit communities have? And what feedback can you get? And the reason why Reddit, the reason I say this is Reddit is just such a pure area for people to, solicit solutions to problems. That's basically the best way I can describe it. They're passionate about certain things. So yeah, use Reddit. Is anyone here on Reddit? I love Reddit, by the way. Come on, there's got to be some Redditors. See?
I'll be on there. I'll definitely be on there. I'm not on there now, but I will be.
Gary knows what's up. So yeah.
Yes. That's a great resource. I never heard of that one.
The other thing about no code is here's a great list of no code businesses on Webflow, their blog. So no code apps, you can go through there, and no code, again, to anyone that doesn't know, is you don't need to be a software engineer to build a business. And what I'm trying to do is get you to launch your business without having to overthink the technical side of it. And there's tons of tools and apps, that you can do to do that. Shopify is the big Canadian one. And here's an example of why. So in the Shopify App Store, you can build a lot of functionality into your store with just a few button clicks. So for instance, if you're doing curbside pickup, there's appointment booking apps. So let's say you have a consulting business, or Gary, parents are booking sessions with you. This is a great plugin. Upselling, cross-selling apps. There's tons of really great tools in the Shopify App Store. It's probably why Shopify is the #1 e-commerce tool, is based on their App Store. What else? Loyalty programs. This is a company out of Waterloo that builds basically, like, however you can kind of code in the loyalty program you want to have with your customers, and they provide the infrastructure to do that. Social proofs. This is really important. This is like reviews, or you might even have an area where you have a product and it says like 20, let's say like 200 people ordered this product, and this is what they said about it. As consumers, transition to e-commerce rather than buying things in store, it's really like you can't touch and feel things. So you have to get your customers to understand that other customers have already come and bought this. And that's a really great way to build is with social proofs. Of course, reviews. If you're a restaurant and you're on this call, go to your Yelp page, go to your Google reviews page. And if you've not responded to every single review in that page, you're missing out on a massive opportunity. I encourage every marketer, go to your Google reviews page, respond to all of them. Even if they're just 5 stars and no description there, just say, hey, thank you for taking the time to give us 5 stars. We really appreciate it. I guarantee you people—
On video, Bumkey. Watch it.
People look at that. Hey, there's what's your son's name, Gary?
No, it's my daughter, but she's just woke up. Yeah, she knows the rules. She has to freshen up first.
All right. What's her name, though?
Ava.
Ava. Well, maybe Ava can come on and say hi later.
For sure. All
right. Last thing I want to share before we just get to kind of an open discussion is LinkedIn. So a little background. Since going remote, like, my LinkedIn is kind of had a fair amount of upside, just in the terms of I host a lot of streams, and all right, sorry, even me, still learning the whole screen sharing thing effectively. All right, just give me a second here. All right. So I wanted to share my LinkedIn. All right, first off, I'm totally open if anyone wants to add me on LinkedIn. I not only respond to everyone's messages, but as best I can, but I also love connecting with people. A few things on LinkedIn.
Josh, I don't think we see your LinkedIn.
Oh, thank you.
We see your OKRs.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. See, I'm telling you, it takes practice. Like, even I kind of stutter a little bit. So here's my LinkedIn. I hope it's coming up now, Nafis. Yeah, thumbs up. So what I'm seeing on LinkedIn is this is a great way to build community. First, what you should do is accept every connection request. If anyone who's willing to take the time to connect with you, go accept it. Build your community up. That does 2 things. It not only creates that connection, but and you can always unconnect them if you're not liking the content that they're putting out or whatnot, but it creates a follower, which is really important. And so I have 28, almost 2,900 followers. When I started COVID, I was at about like 1,500. So I've more than doubled my LinkedIn following in the last 4 months. And it's created a lot of opportunity for me. I've had a lot of people reach out, say, hey, we want to partner with GA, love what you're doing. Can you come do a session at our company or come talk to us about kind of what you're seeing? Every time I post something, I get a lot of traction on my posts. Let's see. I posted this piece here about kind of everyone thinks personal branding is important, and I don't. I think personal identity is important, and it puts you in the mindset to think of not creating my facade for the world, but more so being being a citizen of the internet, essentially. So when you think about your online identity, it's everything that you do for others, and it's the positivity you put out there and the content you put out there. And I got 2,900 views on this. I think I posted this on 4 days ago, so on Friday. And some tips here is don't post links in this stuff. You want to have a really cool image. Go to Shutterstock, download some cool imagery, and you want to space out your posts like this. So LinkedIn unexpanded in everyone's feed sees the top 3 lines. So you want to pull people into your post in the top 3 sentences. And then you want to have this kind of point form style with spaces in between that really break down your story as you go through it. Hashtags are also important. In LinkedIn, popular hashtags like, let's say, hashtag education or hashtag identity, these are there's millions of people that follow these hashtags, and it actually surfaces them. And Gary, I'm just going to mute you real quick because I can hear your background. But yeah, this is something I'm doing on LinkedIn. So again, pull in images, don't post links. Also, when you tag people, so let's say I added Nafis here, please make sure that you're actually doing something with that person, because if that person doesn't come and comment after and say, hey, looking forward to collaborating, or thanks for tagging, it actually is not a very favorable thing in the algorithm. So try not to tag people. Tagging companies is pretty effective. So if you tag like York University, it definitely gets surfaced to the York University community through the algorithm. So those are some tips and tricks about the algorithm. One thing I did early on is I put some posts up about stuff I'm passionate about, Tesla namely, and those posts got like 20,000 views, which was really cool. Here I'm talking about SpaceX. I've done LinkedIn Live. This on Brian's channel had 3,000 views. And there's one other thing I wanted to show on here. Oh, the COVID app, talking about stuff that's trending. So as soon as you see something on Twitter or another social media that's trending, and that's something you're passionate about, post it on LinkedIn right away. Again, 4,200 views. I post stuff that's thought leadership. Like here's population distribution by these little bars. So you can, it's kind of like a tactile map. So it's a really intriguing image. So look for images that are very intriguing, and post personal stuff. Like my wife and I got married last year at the cottage. I'm kissing my wife in this video, but this video, again, 5,000 views. People all around the world saw this. And I think it's really important to post stuff on LinkedIn that is personal, and it does super well. And it also people connect with you. Back to what I was talking about, personal branding. Everyone thinks LinkedIn is a professional space. It's not anymore. It's about creators and people who are showing their journey. So yeah, that's basically what I got for LinkedIn, and happy to kind of turn it over to any questions. And I want to thank everyone kind of for taking the time to listen to my presentation.